Welcome to whatever day it is, Tuesday. Welcome to Tuesday, and it is July 21st. And we are in basketball week here at the Daily Devo Live. So I'm wearing my Clippers gear once again. I'm wearing my Kawhi Leonard jersey today. I was cognizant of the fact that this is a tank top jersey, and so I wore a t-shirt underneath it. Although yesterday I took the t-shirt off, and because I was hot. I ended up getting hot, and so I was walking around pretending that I could wear a basketball jersey still. Yeah, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I was on my high school basketball team. I played basketball, I think, for my schools, different schools, from the time I was in sixth grade all the way to when I was a senior in high school. My sophomore and junior year of high school, we went to the state championship both times, so we were pretty good. We lost both. We were state runners up both times. We lost to the same school. They had some kid who was like 6'6", which is not very big by NBA standards, but was really big by small Christian school standards. And so anyway, I was just about the tallest guy on the team. We had a pretty short team, but we were fast. And we had a kid on our team that he was a really great athlete, and he eventually went to Liberty University on a football scholarship and then went to play for the New York Jets. So he was a really good athlete. And as a freshman, he could like dunk the ball already. Yeah, he was the first black kid to ever go to my school. My school was formed in the days of desegregation by fundamentalist Baptists who did not want their white children going to school with black children. And so they formed a school that remained all white pretty much up until that year, which I think was 1985. So 1980, 84 and 85. Those were the first years. It had been in existence for like 20 years at that point. But at any rate, Leroy Kennard, he is a football coach in Orlando at a big private school, a very big private school, First Academy of Orlando. His students, his athletes get recruited by D1 schools. He's a good guy too, really good guy. But anyway, he was on my team, and a couple other guys that were really good. So I was okay. I was okay. I could account for 9, 10 points a game, a bunch of rebounds. I was more a defensive player. That's why I was on the court. Because I was really good at defense, and so there you go. That's my basketball claim to fame. An almost was, right? So we almost were state champions. Okay, I'm not singing today. I'm going to save that for another day. I'll bust that out on another day. But yes, indeed. If you missed yesterday's Daily Devo Live, you missed me doing a bit from Hamilton. So there you go. Sorry for your luck if you missed out on that. Or maybe I should say congratulations. You know what I mean? Yeah, so that was probably not the greatest thing in the world, but still, yeah, there you go. I got to show off a little bit. So good morning, everybody. Great to see everyone today. I know we've got quite a few folks on already. Just wanted to kind of share some of the things that are going on in my world and in the world of our church. So we've got tomorrow night, we've got our next session of our Conversations on Race, which has been fantastic. And I do hope that you will be back for that. Yeah, I don't know if you're sorry you missed that or not yesterday. My moment of singing King George's song from Hamilton was a short-lived thing. The funny thing is I actually, when the soundtrack is on and then other things and other music, I do actually sing a lot by myself. Here's a fun fact. Okay, here's a fun fact. There was a time when I was the Beth of the church where I was working. Believe it or not. Like, I was the person who led worship. I didn't play guitar. I didn't do any of that, but I was the one that was singing, doing the lead singing. And I was the one that planned all the songs, got the band together, rehearsed, did all the stuff. And I led in worship. So I led worship for our church when we did contemporary stuff, which wasn't that often. So we would do like, contemporary Christian songs every so often in church. And then I would lead that. Meredith actually has got a really great voice. She sings in the choir, or used to sing in the choir on occasion until life has gotten busy, and then Corona and all that other happy jazz. But she did one of the virtual choir pieces, she and my son Jackson, who is actually an excellent singer. I mean, he's got an amazing voice, and was like, he's placed like, high up in the state stuff when he's gone to state competitions and things like that here in Austin. So, but anyway, I led in worship, and I used to do it for our youth group. Like, I did it every week for our youth group. So I was the guy singing and leading worship with the band that I had, and a little youth band that was made up of some volunteer youth leaders and a couple of kids. So here's what happened. There was one kid who was just amazing on guitar, and he was learning guitar, but he was like a natural, like he just picked it up like really fast, and he could play just about anything. After about a year of playing guitar and learning and taking lessons and doing stuff, I mean, he was amazing. I mean, he was he was one of those like, prodigy kind of kids. And so one day I came in for practice, for band practice, and he was in there playing by himself and he was singing. And I was like, oh man, my lead singer days are over. That guy has got an amazing voice. I mean, for a kid, he was fantastic. And the funny thing is that all these many years later, he's in his mid 30s now, maybe late 30s. I think, it's probably like 37 or so, maybe. I guess that's what the age those kids are by now. But that's what he does for a living. He's a musician and a singer, and he lives in Tallahassee, Florida still. But he plays in all these venues and places, and he's recorded music and stuff. So that was the end of my singing career. I realized, you know what? There are all kinds of people that are so much better than me at this. But there are lots of things that I can do that they can't, namely preach and teach, right? So that was where I focused my energies, and I gave up my worship leading. If you were unfortunate enough to be in worship several months ago when I decided on a whim to sing with the band for the 10 before, when I did a Black Sabbath song on Sunday morning, I did Black Sabbath Paranoid, and then I did Hooked on a Feeling by Blue Suede, and I sang that to my wife Meredith, which got me lots of brownie points. God knows I needed them. So anyway, yeah, I've got black friends that they're pastors, and they'll sing like while they're preaching. I mean, that's so awesome. I wish I could do that. I've done it a couple of times, just to kind of shock everybody. Yeah, it's so good. Jackson helps me out to stay on pitch in the tenor section. Yeah, he does. The kid's really good, man. I mean, he's just got a great voice, and he's a great trumpet player too. So he picked up all the musical talent. The funny thing is, my oldest son, Jay, is actually really a great singer as well. He's also a great musician. He can play. So the funny thing about Jay is, though, that he would pick up an instrument, he would learn how to play it. He would play it to sort of a certain proficiency, and then he would just quit. and he would pick up another instrument and he'd learn how to play that. So over the course of his history in band, Jay played the flute. That's where he started off. He was like in 7th grade, and he's like this big boy, and there's all these little girls that he's playing flute. So he played flute. Then he played baritone, tuba. He could play the trumpet. I mean, he figured out, most of the fingering and stuff, that he could play the trumpet pretty well. He can play the guitar, he can play bass, he can play drums, but not very well. Like you know what I mean? He's like, he got to a level where he's like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. And he pick up something else. And that's just kind of that's his personality. Like, he had to find his thing. And fortunately for him, his thing is going to be being a lawyer. That's what he loves. That's his calling. That's what he wants to do, following his mom's footsteps. But he also was a great singer as well. He was in musicals and, things like that. But Jackson focused. That's my Jackson, man. He got focused. He was like, I'm not getting distracted by all these other instruments. I'm going to play the trumpet, and that's what I'm going to do. And he's really good at it. And so he focused on singing and doing singing. I mean, he's done all those kinds of things well. So he's a good kid. And I haven't figured out what Jacob's going to do. That kid was so grumpy this morning, man, when I woke him up to go to camp. Oh, man. He was foul, just did not want to get up, did not want to go to camp, but once he gets there, he's fine. But just the getting him up, getting him there, it's just terrible. So there you go. Yeah, I think they got all the musical talent really came from their mom. But I think the fact that I've always loved music, and I can't play instruments, but I love music. I actually, when I just got out of high school, I was working at Walt Disney World, and I worked there full time. But I wanted to work at this record store. There was a record store that I bought all my records and all my tapes from. And I got to know the guy that was like the semi-manager there, and then the owner. And then I started talking to him, and I'm like, well, what would it take to get, for me to have a part-time job here, And so eventually they hired me. And so I worked there basically for the discount. And then for a short-lived moment, I took about a 5 to 6 month leave from Disney World at one point to see if I could make a go of it as a music store manager. And it was not for me. The management side of it was not fun. I liked just hanging out and listening to music and selling music and talking about music and all that kind of stuff. I loved that. Did not like ordering things, did not like all that kind of stuff and all the junk that went into it. And anyway, so I went back to Disney, and they gave me my old job back, and all was well with the universe. But I kept my part-time job at that record store for years after that, just so that I could have a discount and get music as it was coming out and stuff. So, but anyway, I love music. So that's where they got it. I think they got that part of it. And their mom is super musical. She can play the piano and sing and all that kind of stuff, but she never does it in public, never plays the piano in public, never does any of that stuff in public. Okay. So now you know all kinds of stuff about my family that I'm sure probably didn't need to know, but there you go. So all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the world today. Coronavirus is still out there lurking, doing stuff and making us all miserable. But now California is apparently having a surge, and the president is going to do a briefing without any of his coronavirus task force people standing behind him, clutching their head. There's that famous photo of Anthony Fauci, like with his hand over his face, going like, "How did I get here?" So I can't wait for that, for President Trump to get up there and tell us that there's nothing to see here. and then to talk about nonsensical junk. So there you go. It's going to be a laugh riot, I'm sure. But yeah, the very serious nature of our situation seems to be escaping some of our elected officials and governors and leaders of our country. And the reason why it's escaping them is because they know that if people are focused on the actual thing that is happening around us, that we might not reelect them. Considering they have been on the wrong side of history throughout this entire thing. So, yeah, so that's that. But don't listen to them, you know, because they're always like, who are you going to believe, me or your own eyes, you know? Strange times we live in, folks. Make sure that you vote. It's going to be super important that you vote in November. Because we need to get some folks here that are gonna be making a difference and taking things seriously. So anyway, enough politics. You vote for what your conscience tells you to vote for. Doesn't matter what party they're from, as long as they are intent on the common good. That's the kind of person I would vote for. Somebody who is intent on making sure that the common good is being at the forefront of everything they do. Then that's a person worth voting for. It doesn't matter what party they belong to. Okie dokie. So today we've got a trivia question that I've concocted. There was a 1994 movie that came out that was a basketball movie. And the movie was entitled Blue Chips. And there were actual basketball players that were acting in the movie. And by say acting, I mean they made attempts at acting. It was pretty good. I mean, it was a good story. But this movie had Shaquille O'Neal, Ricky Rowe, and Penny Hardaway. Now, this is absolutely 1994. Those are the basketball players that were like, the ones that were number one on the scene. Of course, when I lived in Orlando during when I lived in Florida during 1994, the Orlando Magic had Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway as on their team, and that was pretty formidable, man. That was a really good team. Horace Grant was on there. He's a guy that eventually went and had played for the Chicago Bulls, so anyway, but yes, that was a pretty good movie. Blue Chips. Okay, it was about a college. That I think it was in California somewhere, Western University or something like that. It was a fake college. That the coach ended up getting kind of embroiled in controversy because the boosters of the university were paying the players, like paying those players, Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway, Ricky Rowe. They were paying them to come and play at their university, which obviously is against NCAA regulations. And so there was this whole thing about, bringing these players there, and then all of the ins and outs. It's a movie called Blue Chips. So my question for you is, who played the coach of that movie? And his wife was played by an actress that we already mentioned when we were talking about the movie The Natural. Okay, so who played the coach in the movie Blue Chips, and who played his wife, who we've already as an actress that was in the movie The Natural? So if you give me those two, if you can give me one, that would be great. But if you can give me both, then you are a rock star. Randy Riggs has got one of them. Nick Nolte, in fact, is the coach, right? Nick Nolte played the coach, playing a typical Nick Nolte character. He's like one guy, like he's the same guy in every movie just about until he got much older. And then I tell you what, probably one of the best movies I've ever seen him in Um, and he didn't have a huge role, but it was called The Thin Red Line. And it starred Jim Caviezel. It was a World War II movie, and it was set in the South Pacific. And Nick Nolte was actually, yeah, you're right. Hold on a minute. Yep, I was wrong. I was wrong on my hint. She was not in that. She was not, the actress was wrong. I was wrong in my hint. Sorry about that. I was looking at another one. But the actress, Neil is right. The actress that played his wife is not from The Natural. That was Barbara Hershey. I was looking at another movie and Barbara Hershey was in that one. So I messed it up. She was in Dances with Wolves, right? So she was in Dances with Wolves. So if you remember that actress's name, McDonald, Mary McDonald, right? That was her name. So Mary McDonald, she was in Dances with Wolves, and yeah, she was in Sneakers. But that was it. But anyway, Mary McDonald. Nick Nolte and Mary McDonald were in there. She played his long-suffering wife as he's going through all of his machinations. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. I actually went and saw it in the movie theater way back when in 1994. There you go. So I messed up my own trivia question. Sorry about that. But Neil got it anyway. So there you go. That's the power of remembering old basketball movies. So for those of you of a certain age, you will remember that there was an arcade game called NBA Jam, and NBA Jam. You only had two players, right? So there were two players chosen from each team. So it'd be the best players for each team. So anyway, I remember playing NBA Jam, and Shaquille O'Neal was on that one. I think that time it was always a point guard. So you'd have like a big man and a point guard. And that's how it was. So some of y'all remember NBA Jam, that was back in that day as well. Okay, so just to remind everybody, we got our class Wednesday. We've got, I'm sure, some fellowship stuff coming up as well. There's things happening during the week, and we have more things cooking and all kinds of plans that are being made for stuff that we're going to be doing. I don't want to overpromise, but we're hoping that at some point in the fall that we're going to be able to do some in-person, outside, socially distanced fellowship gatherings. I'm hoping that we'll be able to do Holy Smokes in some capacity, our barbecue fest, that it may be a drive-through thing or something like that. But at any rate, we're going to be doing some things where we can try to connect with folks and do it when it's safe, right? We can't do anything right now. We can't have gatherings, right? We can't do big gatherings at all. And so we're not doing that, but we will find a way at some point to be able to get folks together safely, of course, and outside. It will be sometime before we are able to worship live and in person. Until then, we're going to be worshiping on Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m. Central Time. And that's what we'll be doing this week. Pastor Britta is going to be preaching. I will be there doing my thing as well. And we'll be learning more about the brief statement of faith from the Presbyterian Church USA that our pastoral intern and mission coordinator, Kelly Bratkowski, is going to be bringing some good words on that. There's going to be a video from Guatemala about Guatemala mission and some greetings, I believe, from some of our missionaries who would have been going to Guatemala. I believe that's going to be happening too, hopefully. And so at any rate, on this weekend, it's going to be fantastic. And I know Pastor Britt is excited to be preaching from the book of Revelation. After that, the week after, we're going to start a brand new series called Indescribable, and we're going to be talking about creativity. And so that ought to be super fun. So I'm working on a bunch of stuff. I've got I'm going to be working on a podcast with my friend Pastor Daryl Horton, who just appeared somewhere on the live broadcast a little bit ago. I saw him pop up. I'm not sure if he's still watching or not, but Pastor Daryl and I are going to be having a conversation. We're going to turn into a podcast, and that's happening. We'll be doing that Friday, and then you'll see the results of that probably next week. Beyond that, I'm working on some ideas for some classes that I'm going to be teaching in the fall, different things like that. So those are all the things that are happening and what are going on in our world. So there's plenty of things to go around for all of our members. Hey, there he is. There's Pastor Daryl. Good to see you, my friend. Okay, so let's jump into the Daily Devo. Today, I coined a phrase. The title of this is from a quote from Pastor Rick Warren. Rick Warren from Saddleback Church, who's was on the forefront of kind of the mega church movement, really kind of pioneering the way that church can be done in bigger ways, and then also more efficiently. With his ideas of purpose-driven church. And those things were highly influential to me. A lot of his books. He wrote The Purpose-Driven Life, which was like other than the Bible, has been like the best-selling nonfiction book of all time. That was amazing. And so he also did some other work as well. And him and his wife have been key sort of players in the fight against AIDS in Africa. Early on, they were really involved in that, and they have also been outspoken about Black Lives Matter and against racial injustice. And these are people who are Southern Baptist, right? So they're in the Southern Baptist Convention. Although I think sometimes the SBC wishes that they weren't, yet still they are. And so good stuff from Rick Warren. That's the name of the Devo, is Hurting People Hurt People. The politician on the video I was watching on a news website was shouting above the reporter who was trying to follow up on the question she asked. I found myself focusing on his demeanor, his battle-ready posture, the fury in his eyes, the way his voice rose and rose until it roared in the room, taking everyone there aback. I added it to the long list of news stories I'd ingested over the last week where people were angrily protesting mask mandates, restrictions on restaurants, bars, church gatherings, and the like. It makes you tired to watch this stuff, doesn't it? I was reading from a book of poetry by the incredible Irish poet Brendan Kennelly. And I came across this poem, and it absolutely just spoke to me as being so appropriate to our times. I'm going to drop it into the comments here so that you can see it too. It's called The Loud Men. So here we go. The loud men. And how, O God, shall we learn to cope with the loud men? Why do they shout, I ask myself? Because under the noise, there is nothing. Because the loud always win attention for a while. Because they are afraid of silence, because they proclaim their own emptiness, because by spitting in the eyes of others, they run like madmen from themselves. Now that's some straight up truth right there, isn't it? It also landed on me a bit for all the times that I've been one of the loud because I was masking my own frailty and my own emptiness. I mentioned yesterday in the Daily Devo that we should learn to see others as Jesus sees them, to see through the bluster sometimes with people that are being loud, right? And when I say loud, I don't mean protesting and crying out for justice. I don't mean, crying out in anguish or pain. I don't mean, that kind of being loud. I mean, that's a different kind of loud. What I mean is when you're loud because you're hiding something, when you're loud because you're trying to outshout someone who's trying to have a conversation with you. When you see this happening in real time and our politicians and so many people who are talking right on the cable news channel, people on the screen, and they just shout at each other. When we do this, we begin to realize that long before someone begins to shout at us or wound us with their words, sometimes softly spoken bile can be even more bitter than a shout. These people were wounded themselves. Pastor Rick Warren famously said, "Hurting people hurt people." Having said that, it doesn't make me make whatever hurtful thing they've said to feel any better, but still, it's important to remember this when you're dealing with someone who is hurtful. Father Richard Rohr once wrote, and I'll drop it in there for you guys so you can see it too. How you treat yourself is how you will usually treat other people too. The person who was vindictive to you today has been vindictive in his own mind since early this morning. She is punitive toward you because she has been punitive toward herself for years without even knowing it. There is enough brokenness to go around in the world around us, and we hold our own fair share of it, to be sure. Each of us has had our moments when we have been among the loud, the hurtful, and the verbally abusive. And each of us can almost certainly trace our hurtful actions back to our own deep and painful hurts, the things that we've been beating ourselves up for, the fears and worries that cause us to lash out. When we are able to look at ourselves this way, it ought to give us the grace that we need to see others differently as well. Granted, there are some hurts and some actions that people inflict on others that cannot be ignored or withstood. But still, it then gives us the ability to understand them better and maybe even to find the strength to forgive them and release them to God. May this be so for you today and every day from this day. And may the grace and peace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you now and always. Amen. So I do hope that if you've had some people in your life that have wounded you, that you're able to see beyond the pain that it causes you. And like I said, those are things you can't ignore and you can't withstand, right? If somebody is constantly hurting you, constantly wounding you, constantly shouting over you, those are things that must be withstood at some point, right? But you also have to remember, that deep inside that person has been wounded, maybe not even aware of how wounded they are, and maybe have been beating themselves up for it for years and years and years, right? And so this comes out. The hurting nature of their existence comes out, and it is hurtful, right? And so, you shouldn't have yourself in situations where you're being abused. You shouldn't be in situations, and you need to get out of those situations. You need to maybe release a person. You can forgive them and release them, and set yourself free from them, and set them free as well to have God as their judge and not you. But, there are sometimes that is something that you need to do. Social media is also a place where a lot of hurtful things happen, where people hurt one another and say hurtful things and post hurtful things. And so, there's a wonderful button called unfollow that you can treat someone to that act of forgiveness, that you can say to them, I forgive you for all of the stupid crap that you have said. Unfollow. I released you now. I give you to God, right? But I am not going to see your posts anymore, right? And you don't have to unfriend them. Unfriending people, is a hurtful thing, right? That's just you being vindictive to a certain extent. Now, if the person is an absolute jackass and is stalking you and doing horrible things, now that's a different story. You might need to unfriend them and block them and so forth. But having said that, sometimes, if it's easier just to say, you know what, I just don't need to hear that from that person. I don't need to see their junk. I am sure that there are lots of people over the course of all this stuff that's been going on that have unfollowed me. It's okay, right? Tit for tat. All right, guys, it's good to see everybody. There's my good friend Anne Marie from living in beautiful Tavares, Florida, the seaplane capital, right? The seaplane city, a great place, and right near where I used to be a pastor, and that's where she attended. And I've said before, Anne Marie was on the search committee that brought me to that church, and so that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's good to see everybody. Thank you for being here, guys. Have a great day. Be well. And to all of my folks that are part of our Shepherd of the Hills family, make sure that you are tuned in on Wednesday as we have the conversations about racial injustice. As that continues, we're going to do another class. Make sure that you're in attendance. And if you know somebody that needs to be there, these kind of stand alone. Each of these classes can stand alone, and so they can attend. Give them the Zoom link. Tell them to come on board. If you've got a friend that's been struggling kind of with all these issues, tell them to come have the conversation. Invite them to be a part of it. We want everybody to be there tonight or tomorrow night as we do that. Have a great day, guys. Be blessed, and be blessed to be a blessing. Have a wonderful day. I'll see y'all tomorrow at 9 a.m.